We are already training people to do jobs that have already expired even before they start college. Well, hello friend. My name is Amon Munyaneza, and I have been sharing with you in the last few conversations about creating value and defending the value for the African people. And this conversation took us through a number of topics, and the big one was about decolonization, the decolonization of Africa. We've talked about the decolonization of the mind, and we said that Africa's land might be free, may be free today. We don't have colonialists running around telling us what to do on our territory, but our mind's free. That's the question we asked ourselves last time. And I remember that I left us off talking about the decolonization of education. And I know that this is a controversial topic because the Africa's education system have been here for many, many years. We inherited how we educate from the West. If you come from French West Africa, you are educating according to the way the French educate or educated. If you come from British East Africa, you are educating according to the British system. And some of the books that we use in Africa have been around for 100 years, and students are still studying these books. They're still studying these concepts. And the question is, how can Africa create a system of education, a curriculum? How can Africa create a way of instructing our children in such a way that we are able to impart knowledge that is locally generated? How can we educate children to solve local problems? And that is only possible if we can stop and ask questions and say, how are we educating our children? This is a question that very few people have been able to ask themselves. Very few people have been able to pause and say, is the education system that we have working? Are we under a colonized system of education? Are we propagating colonial ideas of education? Have we been able to break free? Have we been able to create something truly local that answers local questions? So I want to talk about the decolonization of education, the decolonization of our education system. So what does it mean to decolonize education? It means to rethink, it means to restructure, it means to eliminate systems that don't work for us. It's really an audit. If you have ever done auditing in accounting, you know what I'm talking about. In auditing, you go and look at each account by account. You look at income and you look at expenses and inventory and raw materials, and you want to make sure that everything is balancing. You want to make sure that your books are actually saying what your business has been doing. That's called an audit. And I believe that in 2025 and beyond, we need to start editing and auditing our educational systems and ask ourselves, is our education system actually solving the problems that Africa has today? See, something I want us to know is that problems evolve, all right? Countries evolve, people evolve. And with the evolution of the people comes the evolution of knowledge. And with the evolution of knowledge comes the evolution of how we actually impart that knowledge. So Africa has been independent since the 1960s. We're talking about, many, many years of independence, 60 plus years of independence, right? And a lot has changed from the 60s to today. Meaning that now we have to start asking ourselves, and we have to look at every lesson, every subject, every class, every book, and say, is this book current and is this book relevant to the problems that Africa is facing today? Because if we don't do that, we are going to create a mismatch between our educational system and the problems that we face. Because we all know, what is the purpose of education? The purpose of education is to solve problems. The reason why we educate doctors is so we can treat people. We train lawyers so we can create justice. we train engineers so we can build roads, strong houses. That's why we do education. We train geographers so that they can be able to tell us what is happening around us, agriculturists, so they can plant better crops. So the purpose for education is to solve problems. Now, the question I have for you and for me is the education that we have today solving the problems that we have today? Or a better question is, does the education we have today match with the problems that we have today? And I want to say, I have a big doubt about that. I have a big doubt about the fact that the education that we have today is actually solving the problems that we have today. Because think about it, kids in primary school are still studying about, is it secondary school? They're still studying about the Canadian prairies. They're still studying about the French Revolution. They're still studying about European history and Hitler. And the question is, why are we studying about the French Revolution? Why are we not studying about the African Revolution? Why are we not studying about the African kings, the history of Africa? Why are we studying about the history of Europe? And how does that play into the problems that we're studying today? A lot of us don't really understand that the education we received back in the colonial times was very focused and very targeted, right? The colonial masters had an industry to run. And if you have been in business, you know what we call on-the-job training, right? On-the-job training is, I have a company and I have gaps in my company. I don't want my employees to go out there and study a master's in biology when I really want them to learn how to run my factory machines better, right? What I want them to do is to go out there and learn targeted education that is going to solve the problem that I have in my industry. So that's how colonial education worked. Colonial education was, we are here to colonize Africa and we have needs. We need accountants, we need doctors, we need doctors to treat people working in the farms. We need lawyers to help with wrangles that are happening. The education was targeted to create people that could work for the colonial masters so that the colonialism industry can flourish. Now that was great, and it was great because we were able to learn how to read and write. We learned a few things, but colonialism ended, and we kept learning the same things that were meant to propagate or to create continuity for the colonial economic ecosystem. Now, after independence, what we could have done back then was to ask ourselves, how do we want to be independent in our mind? How do we want to be independent in the way we educate our children, right? But it's never too late, right? We still have time to ask those questions. So today, I want to talk about asking the question of how do we now educate our children, and how do we decolonize education, right? And why is decolonizing education is important? First of all, we have to correct the historical injustices in education. We have to ask ourselves, what was left in our education system that was designed to create employees, not independent thinkers? That's one thing we really have to review, because, as I said, the education that we received here through colonization was to create employees. And up to today, we have a lot of universities that are churning out students that are going on the streets asking for jobs, asking, where is a job? I need a job. Can you give me a job? But we are no longer in a world where there is a job waiting for you. We are in a world where we have to become independent thinkers and create jobs by solving problems. So that's one historical fact that we have to destroy. We have to destroy this understanding that we are preparing job seekers instead of job thinkers. So we have to think job. We have to think independently. We have to think value creation. We have to create a system of education that prepares children to create value. Not to go out and seek who is going to give me a job, who is going to give me a suit, who is going to give me an office, who's going to give me a corner office. There is no corner office for the 1.4 billion Africans and growing. There is not enough corner offices for the university graduates who are churning out. There is not enough corner offices for all these children that are studying the history of Europe. We don't have a corner office for them. I'll tell you what we have. We have people that need to eat chicken. We have a population that needs to eat potatoes and rice and beans. That's what we have. We have a population that needs to wear shoes. We have a growing consumer population that needs to consume clothes and wear clothes. That's what we have. We don't have a corner office of people analyzing numbers. We don't have that. We don't have a corner office for administrators. We don't have that. And there's even a bigger issue, because now some of these jobs that we've been training for are going to be taken over by AI, by technology. We are already training people to do jobs that have already expired even before they start college. So what is going to happen? What is going to happen is we are going to be left behind. So we have to restore our education to meet the needs that we have today. Another thing we have to do is that we have to re-invite our cultural identity in our system of education. Re-invite the cultural identity. We have to re-invite the Africanism. We have to re-invite our way of thinking, our way of processing information, our way of relating with the world around us. Until we decolonize the way we educate, until we change the way we deliver information to our children, we are always going to be playing catch up. We need a revolution from primary school to secondary school to high school to college. We have to create a revolution if Africa is going to be truly free. So we have to decolonize the land. Thank God we did that. We have to decolonize the mind. That's a work in progress. We have to decolonize politics. That's a work in progress. And we have to decolonize education. This is a journey that we have to be on. We have to start the journey now. And if we don't get onto the journey, we are going to spend another 60 years still receiving charity, when we actually have enough resources to create an Africa that can feed the rest of